Wii Sports Resort is one of my favorite games of all time, and I think it would be a massive missed opportunity not to bring back Wii Sports in some form on the Nintendo Switch. I really wish Nintendo would make a new Wii Sports game with an open-world version of Woohoo Island. That would probably be my favorite thing ever made. But sadly, I don't think Nintendo will ever make the Wii Sports game of my dreams, which just leaves me and my imagination. But that's okay, I can work with that. I actually have a lot of thoughts and ideas about a potential new Wii Sports game on Switch, so I decided to put them all together into one video. So join me today as we imagine a Switch Sports Resort. When I said I have a lot of ideas about this game, I mean a lot. I'm constantly coming up with tons of new ideas and concepts for a Switch Sports Resort, so I tried to limit my thoughts to a somewhat realistic and cohesive possibility. Since this game doesn't actually exist, I'll be using footage from a variety of different sources, like other Wii Sports games, Go Vacation, and more. I'll do my best to put some stuff on screen that matches what I'm saying, but you'll probably have to use your imagination a little bit. And without any further ado, let me introduce you to Switch Sports Resort. There's a lot to talk about with this game, so I'll start with the game's opening and then go into each of the larger features after that. I decided to keep the opening the same as it was in Wii Sports Resort, since it was so perfect. So you start by jumping out of a plane and skydiving down to Woohoo Island. But of course it's even more impressive this time around with gorgeous HD visuals and a new level of polish. And this time, instead of cutting to a title screen, the camera keeps following your Mii as you glide down, and you land in the middle of Woohoo Town. There's a big celebration in the town square with plenty of other Miis shouting and cheering with lots of confetti to welcome you to the island. Once you land, you'll go through a quick tutorial introducing you to the main mechanics of the game, and after that, you're totally free to do whatever you want. You can run around the entire open world of Woohoo Island right from the start, and all the sports are unlocked at the same time in the beginning. I went back and forth on adding some sort of progression system where you unlock the sports gradually, but ultimately decided against it. I think Wii Sports is best at its simplest, where you can dive right in and have fun. I also want there to be a lot of freedom, where each player gets to choose what they want to do without the game giving too many instructions. I decided to keep the opening short and sweet, so you can get right into the good stuff. Pretty much the entire game opens up after the tutorial, and there's plenty of things to do. Now let's jump into each of the major features of Switch Sports Resort. This is going to be a lot of info, so I split it all into 3 big sections. These are the 3 biggest elements of this game and will be what you spend the majority of your time on. There's the open world, the sports, and the customization. Let's get started by talking about the part of this game that is most exciting for me, the open world of Woohoo Island. Just like in Wii Sports Resort, Woohoo Island is the main location for Switch Sports Resort, but this time it plays an even larger role. This island is the hub for all the activities you can do, and there's lots to explore and discover. I really want the open world to replace the typical menus of a Wii Sports game. So when you want to play a sport, you'll walk to the part of the island where that sport takes place. I'll talk about this more in the sports section, but each sport has its own champion, and each champion will be standing in the location of that sport. Once you run up and talk to them, that's how you'll start playing that sport. For example, if you want to play boxing, you'll have to walk to the boxing ring in Woohoo Town and talk to Matt. Once you finish playing a sport and choose to exit instead of try again, you'll be kicked back into the open world right where you entered. Hopefully what I'm saying is making sense. I think this will create a more seamless gameplay experience and help Woohoo Island feel like even more of a real place where you spend your time. This will be similar in setup to Nintendo Land, where you can walk around to play different minigames, but you can also access a traditional menu where you select stuff normally. At any time in the open world of Woohoo Island, you can press plus to open up a typical Wii Sports menu, with all the sports and game modes available. Woohoo Island will get a new coat of paint with upgraded textures and really great lighting effects. Woohoo Island will also have a full day and night cycle that passes as you explore, but you can also select a specific time of day in the menu. So if you want it to stay sunset at all times, you can do that. There are tons of Miis walking around the island and cars driving on the roads. You can even talk to the Miis on the island and they'll say some funny jokes or something. There are all sorts of collectibles around the island to discover. There are hidden treasure chests that hold special clothing or other items, and classic eye points around the island at key landmark locations. Collecting different amounts of eye points will unlock a variety of different things, like your face on the side of the whale shark, fireworks at night, and more. All of these collectibles can be gathered at any time whenever you want, although they might be a little difficult to collect without a vehicle to help you. When you first start off, you won't have any vehicles available, so you can only walk around on your feet. You can sprint, jump, and swim all over the place, but there isn't any climbing. so getting to some of the higher up eye points and treasure chests is pretty much impossible. To unlock different vehicles in the open world, you'll have to go to the transportation center in Wuhu Town and take special license tests for each individual vehicle. So if you want to unlock the plane in the open world, you'll have to pass the license test for the plane. I took this idea from the original Pilotwings, where you have to get a certain score to pass the test, and then you'll get a license and be certified for that vehicle. These tests won't be very difficult, but they aren't super easy either. I didn't want all the vehicles to be available right from the start, but instead have the player need to work a little bit to unlock different ways of getting around. The license tests are separate from the sports, and not all license tests will be available in the beginning. Of course, important vehicles like the plane and bicycle will be attainable from the start, but for special stuff like the wingsuit and rocket jet, you'll have to unlock those license tests later on in the game. The vehicles will spawn in at certain parts of the island. For example, there will always be a plane near the docks. As you're exploring the open world, at any time you can hop into a plane and start flying around. If you crash your plane, you'll be respawned in the air like in the flyover minigame in Wii Sports Resort, but you can also eject out of the plane whenever you want, and glide safely back down to the island. Oh, and one last thing about the vehicles, passing the license test will only unlock the basic version of that vehicle. So if you want to get all the upgrades like an extra passenger in the plane, or an extra speed boost for the jet ski, you'll have to unlock that in the sports. Like I said, I have a lot of ideas for this game, so I hope you're still following me here. Of course, you can explore the open world and split-screen multiplayer with your friends and family too. I'm not exactly sure how the collectibles would work in multiplayer, but I'll let Nintendo worry about that. That's the great part about imagining a game, we don't have to worry about the finer details. I was thinking of adding seasons to Wuhu Island, but I don't think that's a good idea and decided not to do it. I think it's best to keep the island in its summer theme, and seasons would complicate things a lot. And for the controls, the open world will just be button controls except when using a vehicle. You move with the left stick, jump with A and sprint with B, have a fully controllable 3D camera with the right stick, and you control vehicles like the plane using motion controls. And the final thing I have to say in this section is that when you press L and R on the title screen, it transitions right into the open world. Again, there are menus available if you want them, but this time it will be like you're actually living on the island. The open world of Wuhu Island will be one of the main attractions of Switch Sports Resort. It will add even more content and connect all the sports into one seamless experience. Now let's move on to talking about the sports themselves. Of course, the sports themselves are one of the biggest parts of Switch Sports Resort. In this game, there's a total of 18 sports, with all of the previous sports from the past Wii Sports games, as well as a few new ones. The controls are a pretty tricky situation on Switch. I still want there to be a lot of motion controls, since that's the heart and soul of the series, but there has to be some button control options for portable play. So I decided to split the sports into two different categories. There are the sports that require motion controls and can't be played in handheld mode, and the sports that have motion controls but also have optional button controls so they can be played portably. This still isn't the perfect solution, and it will be a bit of a bummer that some sports can't be played on the go, but I can't really think of another way to do it. Luckily, there aren't too many sports that require motion controls, so most of the game can still be played with button controls in handheld mode. You can also choose to have button controls in TV mode if you want, but you'll have to use motion controls for the sports that require it. The motion controls would be done using the Joy-Con, with some sports requiring both and some only needing one. I really don't know how reliable the Joy-Cons would be for motion controls, but let's just pretend they'd work perfectly. I briefly mentioned this in the open world section. Each sport will have its own champion. The champion is who you talk to in the open world to start playing, and they're kind of the host for each sport, so any quick tutorials will be given by them. The champions are also the final challenges of their sport, and beating them isn't easy. Switch Sports Resort doesn't really have a story or an ending, but the closest thing to that is beating all the champions in all the sports. Once you reach pro rank in a sport, it will unlock a boss battle of sorts where you face off against that sport's champion. These battles will be different for various different sports. For example, the Air Sports Champion battle will be a dogfight. The stamps from Wii Sports Resort will make a return, providing even more goals to try and achieve. And before I start talking about all the sports individually, I want to go over a big new feature, the Resort Card. In the opening tutorial, you'll be given your Resort Card, and this is how you track all your progress. These will look similar to the passports in Animal Crossing New Horizons, with your name, a customizable photo, and various other info about your Mii, including your overall resort level. Everything you do on the island, from playing sports to finding collectibles, will give you experience points which will raise your resort level. Increasing your resort level doesn't really do all that much, it's mostly just a way of tracking your progress. So there's no pressure to grind for XP or anything, although there will be some fun rewards once you hit certain levels. Flipping your resort card to the back will show your rank in each individual sport. Let's quickly talk about how ranks work in sports. Just like in Wii Sports Resort, there's this chart where winning in a sport makes the graph go up and losing makes it go down. And there's a line near the top that once you cross it, you become a pro. But this time there are multiple different lines on the graph that all match different ranks. So the very bottom is novice, then there's intermediate, pro, expert, and master. Reaching pro is just as hard as it was in Wii Sports Resort, so you can imagine how tough it is to get expert and master rank. This will add more replayability to each sport, as you can always try and get a higher rank. Clicking on each sport on your resort card will show you your graph for that sport. So basically, your resort level is an overall level that only increases and you get XP for everything. And separate from that, you also get a rank for each individual sport, like pro or expert. Hopefully that all makes sense. I wanted to keep the chart system from Wii Sports Resort, but also add another way to track your progress. Another feature that's returning from past games is the training mode. Training lets you get better at each sport with fun mini-games and challenges. The game will keep track of your records in each sport too, which makes it even more fun. Playing training will give you lots of XP for your resort level, but it won't affect your rank in each sport, so don't try and grind training to become pro rank. Okay, that's all of the general information about sports. Now I'll quickly go over each of them. I'm not going to go very in-depth because that would take forever. I'll just name each sport and the different modes, who the champion is, and where they are in the open world of Wuhu Island. Let's get started. Swordplay is pretty much exactly as it used to be, because this sport is basically perfect. There's Duel, Speed Slice, and Showdown. Tyrone is the champion of Swordplay, but there's a secret boss battle where you fight Matt. Tyrone is at the Swordplay Coliseum. Basketball is the same, with the 3-point contest and pickup game. Tommy is the champion of basketball, and he's at the basketball court in Wuhu Town. Air sports is pretty different this time around. You still have skydiving and dogfight, but island flyover isn't here anymore. That's because the eye points are just in the normal open world, and you can fly around the island in a plane whenever you want. So instead, there's a new mission mode, which is exactly like it was in Pilotwings Resort. There are lots of missions that have you flying through rings and landing the plane. There are even some special missions like the one with the wingsuit, that once you beat, it unlocks a special license test so you can use the wingsuit in the open world. Miguel is the champion of air sports, and he's down by the docks next to the Queen Peach. Tennis has both normal tennis and table tennis. Lucia is the champion of tennis, and she's over at the Kokoba Hotel near the tennis courts. Golf is the same as it always is, with both the courses from Wii Sports and Wii Sports Resort. But there's also a new mode, Mini Golf. This is basically just putting all the time on fun little mini golf courses. Luca is the champion of golf, and he's on Wedge Island. Bowling stays the same, with a standard game and a 100-pin game. Kentaro is the champion of bowling, and he's at the bowling alley in Wuhu Town. Boxing finally makes a return, and it's the version from Wii Sports and not Wii Sports Club. Boxing only has one mode, but of course it still has all its training stuff in training mode. Matt is the champion of boxing, and he's over in the new boxing building in Wuhu Town. Baseball also makes a return, and it's just like it was in Wii Sports. Sakura is the champion of baseball, and she's on a brand new island that has a baseball stadium to the northwest of Wuhu Island. Wakeboarding is back and takes you around the island as you pull off amazing tricks. Ryan is the champion of wakeboarding, and he's on a boat just off Sugar Sand Beach. Frisbee has both Frisbee Golf and Pet Frisbee, where you play Frisbee with your own customizable pet, but we'll get to that in the next section. Keiko is the champion of Frisbee, and she's on both Sugar Sand Beach and Wedge Island. Archery is exactly like it was in Wii Sports Resort, only now with even more locations and hidden targets. Elisa is the champion of archery, and she's by the rock structure next to the waterfall. Power cruising is pretty much the same, with both slalom courses and a versus mode. Shinosuke is the champion of power cruising, and he's on the beach near Camel Rock. Canoeing still has the speed challenge mode and versus mode, but now it also has a rowing crew mode that's similar to how it was in Wii Fit U. Abby is the champion of canoeing, and she's at the Duckling Lake near Summerstone Castle. Cycling has the road race and versus modes. Anna is the champion of cycling, and she's at the Red Iron Bridge. Okay, we just have 4 more sports to cover quickly, and all of these are brand new sports to the Wii Sports series. First we have soccer, or football if you're outside the US. This one is really tricky to fit into Wii Sports. I really want soccer to be one of the new sports, but I had a hard time coming up with how to control it with motion controls. Since you can't use your hands in soccer, I'm not really sure how it would work. I think it should be somewhat similar to basketball, where you don't control where the Miis move, you just decide when to pass and shoot. But as far as how you control it with motion controls, I'm drawing a blank. But I'm sure Nintendo could figure that out somehow. Alex is the champion of soccer, and he's on a completely new island that has a soccer stadium to the northeast of Wuhu Island. Beach volleyball is another one of the new sports, and it would be a ton of fun to play volleyball in Wii Sports. Motion controls would actually work really well in this sport, where you swing up to hit the ball up and swing down to spike. Rachel is the champion of beach volleyball, and she's over on Sugar Sand Beach. Then there's surfing, which would be an amazing addition to Wii Sports. You control the board using motion controls, and you get more points the more tricks you do. Cole is the champion of surfing, and he's also on Sugar Sand Beach. Man, that beach might be getting a little crowded. And the last new sport is fishing. To go fishing, you hop on a boat and go out into the ocean to catch some fish. Everything you catch you let go back into the ocean, and you get points depending on how big the fish are. I always love fishing in any video game. It's always so relaxing and enjoyable. Marco is the champion of fishing, and he's waiting for you on the Queen Peach. And that's it. That was a lot of stuff to cover. As you can see, there's tons of stuff to do on Wuhu Island. Another great feature is that all these sports can be played online with friends or other random players, so Switch Sports Resort won't be limited to local multiplayer. Matchmaking with random players will be based on your rank in each sport, so you'll only go up against people of a similar skill level. Online play will add an insane level of replayability, and playing sports against other people online would be so much fun. And before we move on, I'll quickly name the sports that require motion controls and can only be played in TV mode. Swordplay, basketball, boxing, frisbee, and archery can only be played using motion controls and not button controls. But the rest of the sports have button control options and can be played in handheld mode. Okay, this section has already gone on for way too long, so let's move on to customization. And the last big section of Switch Sports Resort is the level of customization. I'm talking customizable clothing, vehicles, pets, and even your own personal resort house. Basically turn Wii Sports into a mini version of Animal Crossing. Let's start with the clothing. Just like in Go Vacation, you can find all sorts of different clothing in hidden treasure chests around the island. You can customize your Mii's shirt, pants, shoes, headgear, sunglasses, and backpack. Do you want to wear flip-flops, a swimsuit, and sunglasses? Go for it. Or maybe a stylish tuxedo with a chicken hat? Well, you can do that too. Clothing isn't only found in chests. Completing certain tasks in each sport will unlock you new clothing, like a cycling outfit for getting all the stamps in cycling. The clothing you choose to wear will also carry over into the sports, so you can wear sandals and a top hat while playing basketball. You can also customize the vehicles you unlock, like changing the color of your plane and adding special patterns to it. You can customize the gear you use in sports, like your sword or basketball. You can also unlock special versions of the sporting gear by reaching pro rank in that sport. For example, a diamond bowling ball. You also get to have your very own pet in this game, either a cat or dog. The pets are totally customizable, and there's even some clothing for them too. And of course, there's always an option to pet your cat or dog. Your pet will even play frisbee with you in the pet frisbee sport. Your pet will stay in your vacation home, but you can take them out to explore Wuhu Island alongside you. Speaking of vacation homes, let's talk about that next. You'll start the game by getting a small cabana in Cabana Lagoon, where you can customize the outside and inside with decorations and furniture. Furniture can also be found in treasure chests, and also unlocked in various other ways. And once you beat all the champions, you'll get a big Wuhu Island trophy to put in your house. As your resort level increases, the size of your vacation home will also increase. Even further into the game, you can choose different locations and types of vacation homes, like your own private island, an apartment in Wuhu Town, or maybe even stay in Summerstone Castle itself. Your vacation home will act as your main hub, where you can change clothes and customize your gear. You can also view all the iPoints you found in your house, and read up on some in-depth descriptions about locations around the island. Of course, there's also a photo mode, so you can take all sorts of beautiful pictures of your time on Wuhu Island. There is lots of Nintendo-themed clothing and furniture, so you can dress up like Mario and have the Master Sword in your vacation home. And as always, Mii's on your system will show up around Wuhu Island, either during a sport or just walking around in the open world. Switch Sports Resort offers the player a personalized experience that you get to make your own. And that's all my ideas for a Switch Sports Resort. I doubt this game will ever actually be created, but at least it's fun to dream about it. I think my ideas can still be improved upon, but I had to draw the line somewhere. But what about you? Do you have any ideas for Switch Sports Resort, and what would you like to see in this game? Let me know down in the comments. Wii Sports is such a fantastic franchise, and I really wish it would make a return sometime in the future. Nintendo, if you're watching this, feel free to take any of my ideas. I really don't care, just please make this game. Well, thanks for joining me today, and hopefully you aren't too sad that this game doesn't actually exist. This was a pretty massive video to put together, so I hope you enjoyed it. And if you want to see more Nintendo-related content, both past and present, consider subscribing to my channel. Now I'm gonna go play some more Wii Sports Resort. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see ya in the next one.